In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King appoints Abdullah Mansour to head a new government that will push the reform agenda and oversee upcoming elections. In the letter of designation, the King says history will record that Jordanian Spring is peaceful and civilized. And scores of Syrian rebels and army soldiers are killed in fighting near the Turkish border. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King has asked veteran politician and lawmaker Abdullah Mansour to form a new government to push the reform agenda forward and prepare for upcoming parliamentary elections. The new cabinet will replace the outgoing government of Prime Minister Faiz al-Tarawne. The King last week dissolved the lower house of parliament, which was halfway into its four-year term, and called for early elections. The dissolution paved the way for the polls that should be held within 4 months upon the constitutional amendments, which also led to the establishment of an independent election commission and a constitutional court. In the letter of designation to Mansour, His Majesty hailed him as dedicated with an impressive record that qualifies him to take the job at a critical stage for the region and the country. The King urged Mansour to form a new government that builds on the achievements of the past years and handles the tasks of the current stage. The King also emphasized the outcome of the process, which will help put citizens at the center of decision-making. He wrote that he is looking forward to the next parliament to lay the foundation of a parliamentary government. Setting the roadmap for the new administration, King Abdullah's primary responsibility in this transitional phase is to pave the way for a leap in Jordan's political history and democratization. The government, he said, is expected to continue dialogue with all segments of society and political parties to encourage and effective participation in the polls. Turning to other challenges, the King said attention should be paid to a set of economic and social issues that negatively impacted citizens' lives. He called for the formation of a committee comprising distinguished local and international experts to revisit privatization policy carried out by successive Jordanian governments. Another dilemma ahead in energy, where His Majesty said the government should work on alternative and renewable energy sources. The King emphasized the need to agree on a charter to enhance the system of integrity, transparency, accountability, and the rule of law to guarantee justice and equal opportunity for all. His Majesty said more efforts are needed to protect national unity and ensure a coherent internal front. On the Arab Spring, the King said history will record that the Jordanian Spring was civilized and highly responsible, thus urging the new government to respect freedom of expression within the law and the right to peaceful protest without vandalizing public or private property or violating or undermining the rights of others. He said regional developments have brought about unprecedented security challenges, urging the government to support all members of the armed forces and security services. On the Syrian crisis, King Abdullah directed the government to continue to provide all support for Syrian refugees in Jordan within the available resources and intensify contacts with the world community to provide the necessary aid and improve services in refugee camps as winter approaches. The letter also tackled a wide range of domestic and Arab and Islamic issues, urging the new government to continue to enhance joint Arab action and support just causes of Arab and Islamic nations, foremost of which is the Palestinian issue. Earlier, a royal decree was issued accepting the resignation of the cabinet of Prime Minister Faiz al-Tarawne. In a letter to Tarawne, the King thanked him and his team for the substantial achievements made at the political and economic levels during their 5 months in office. The King said Tarawne's cabinet has advanced change and put the reform plan into real implementation. In his reply to the King, Tarawne highlighted his government's achievements on the road to reform, namely the establishment of the Independent Elections Commission and Constitutional Court and endorsement of a political legislation package. He said his government had adopted plans and programs aimed at relieving Jordan of the economic crisis that has choked the country and accumulated over the past years. He noted that the enactment of the elections law was based on the highest possible degree of national consensus. Tarauna added that his government had striven to store confidence in the national economy both at home and abroad. Tarauna pledged to remain a loyal soldier in the service of the king and the great Jordanian people and to defend the country. A royal decree asked secretaries general of ministries to continue their work as a caretaker capacity until a new government is in place. The Prime Minister-designate is a veteran politician having held senior government jobs in previous governments. In his bid to put together a ministerial team, Nsour will reach out to all political forces and visit Parliament tomorrow. He has already called on outgoing Prime Minister Faiz al-Tarauna, saw Senate President Taher al-Masri, and also called former Prime Ministers being named to the premiership. Lai Shanqiti takes a look into Nsour's career.
The US and French educated Nsour replaces Faiz al-Tarauna, another veteran politician, at the helm of the new government. Nsour has a long career as a lawmaker and has held senior government posts in successive administrations. He was a strong supporter of the country's constitutional reforms accelerated last year. Nsour, an outspoken MP and senator who has repeatedly called for sweeping reforms and a tough fight against corruption. Born in the city of Salt in 1939, Nsour holds a PhD degree in planning. He held several ministerial positions, including Minister of Foreign Affairs, Industry and Trade, Higher Education, Planning Administrative Development, and Minister of State for Media Affairs and Communications and Deputy Prime Minister. Nsour was elected member of the House of Representatives from 1981 to 1997 and again in the 16th Parliament in 2010. He was also appointed senator from 1997 to 2001 and again from 2009 and 2010. Nsour also headed several academic positions, including chairman of the Zaytun University Board of Trustees and deputy chair at Al-Balqa, Hashimiyya, Jordan University for Science and Technology, and the University of Jordan. The new Prime Minister was also board chairman of the Cement Corporation, vice president of the Phosphate Company, and permanent representative to UNESCO in Paris. Late Shanqiti for the news at 10.
His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, opened at the Queen Alia Hospital a 12 million dinar oncology center. His Majesty, accompanied by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mash'al Mohammed Zaban, and hospital staff, toured various sections of the center, which will treat 40 patients a day. The King was briefed on the services the center provides to patients who in the past were transferred to the Ministry of Health Hospitals and the King Hussein Cancer Center. The facility, which was established upon the King's directives, employs specialized oncologists and medical staff. Centers run by the military will be opened in hospitals countrywide, including the Prince Hashim Hospital in Aqaba by year's end, as well as the Mafraq and Ajloon Military Hospital next year. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal Al Hussein, founder and chairman of Generations for Peace, opened the Generations for Peace Samsung Advanced Training. In opening remarks, Prince Faisal spoke of the shared determination of the pioneers and delegates to take personal action to create a better future. He expressed the importance and value of each pioneer and delegate as a source of inspiration and motivation in the path towards cascading positive change in communities around the world. He emphasized the importance of united action to address violence and the value of embracing diversity to share and learn from each other. Prince Faisal thanked Samsung Electronics Levant for their unwavering support in promoting youth leadership, community empowerment, and responsible citizenship.
I believe we have our first question. Thank you.
Syrian rebels halted a Syrian army push to retake a strategic town to the main highway to Turkey one day after it was captured by opposition fighters. At least 30 rebels and scores of government forces were killed in the fighting near Marat al-Nu'man. Turkey's military vowed to respond with greater force if shelling from Syria continues to hit its territory. Hala Dababne has more on the rising tension on the Turkey-Syria border.
Clashes between the Syrian army and rebels intensify along the Turkish-Syrian border, and Ankara vows to respond with greater force if the violence spills over the border. The Syrian border town of Mazra'at came under sustained mortar fire as government forces battled rebels near Turkey. Syrian rebel fighters were engaging in fierce gun battles with government forces and liberating the strategic town of Mu'arrat al-Nu'man in Idlib province. The Syrian government brought in aerial support as clashes intensified in villages along the border. Turkey's armed forces have bolstered their presence along the border and have been responding to gunfire and shelling coming across from northern Syria. Several mortar bombs struck border villages, and heavy machine gun fire could be heard from the Turkish side. Turkey has made clear that it is reluctant to launch any major military operation on Syrian soil, but will protect its people.
We don't want war. We don't want to act in a warfare situation. But the thing is, in Akçakale and in the following days, the shelling from the Syrian side is continuing. I think no government can stay idle in such a position because we must protect the lives of our civilians and citizens.
Scores of Syrian civilians, many of them women and children, used ropes and boats to cross the narrow Orontes River, marking the border with Turkey, as they fled the fighting in Asmaran and surrounding villages. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said earlier the 28-member military alliance had plans in place to defend Turkey. Hala Debabne for the News at 10.
Former Israeli Minister Ehud Olmert is considering staging a political comeback in an election early next year. Such a move could shake up a race that opinion polls suggest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is poised to dominate, with no current heavyweight opposition contenders. Luay Balqar has more in this report.
Eager to strengthen his political position, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called for early elections. In office since 2009, the Israeli leader said in an address that bickering among his coalition partners over proposed cuts in the 2013 budget is a main reason for hitting polls. Opinion polls suggest Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party will be the front-runner in the vote likely to be held in January or February, some 8 months ahead of schedule.
That is why the way the field seems right now, Netanyahu is unrivaled, certainly not left. At the center, at the same time, he benefits from the complete collapse of the current major opposition party, Kadima, and from the position of the up-and-coming centrist alternative, namely Yair Lapid, who is expected to win a tenth of the electorate, which is about half of what Kadima won, and therefore also poses no threat to Netanyahu.
In what appeared to be a two-pronged approach to the coming election campaign, Netanyahu said Israel must ensure Iran won't have an atomic bomb. Israel is believed in the Middle East's only nuclear power. But the question of peace with the Palestinians and Palestinian statehood is unlikely to figure prominently in the election campaign. Palestinians remain skeptical of Netanyahu, with some saying he has not given any indication he intends improve his policies towards Palestinians. On the contrary, they say another term would likely see a further radicalization of his policies.
We will follow and observe what will happen. We hope that these elections will result in an Israeli leadership that will be interested in peace on the basis of the peace process while respecting UN resolutions, which clearly state the importance of halting all settlement activities, the respect of international law, and the return to negotiations immediately in order to end the occupation and to form the independent Palestinian state.
Israel's parliament will dissolve itself in the coming days and fix the election date, with Netanyahu in charge of a transitional government until a new administration is sworn in. A fresh ballot box victory would mean the Israeli leader would embark on a new mandate at roughly the same time as the next US president takes office. Netanyahu has had a strained relationship with the US President Barack Obama, and Democrats have accused him of favoring Republican presidential contender Mitt Romney. Luay Balqar for the News.
NATO defense ministers have agreed that a planned withdrawal of combat forces from Afghanistan will not be sped up. The changed nature of the alliance mission in Afghanistan after the departure of combat troops dominated a two-day meeting which ended today. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said he had confidence Afghan forces would be capable of taking charge of security operations when the NATO mission enters a new phase in 2014. U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta characterized attacks on NATO forces as an attempt to undermine the relationship between Afghan forces and their NATO allies.
Whatever tactics the enemy throws at us, IEDs, insider attacks, car bombs, we will not allow those tactics to divide us from our Afghan partners, and we will not allow those tactics to divert us from the mission that we are dedicated to.
With U.S. elections only 4 weeks away, the daily tracking poll found incumbent Barack Obama and Mitt Romney tied among likely voters at 45% each. Strategists say Obama still holds an advantage in the handful of contested states that will decide the election. But there were signs that Romney may be able to expand the battlefield to states that had been considered beyond his reach. Two American scientists were awarded the 2012 Nobel Chemistry Prize. They won for research into how cells respond to external stimuli that is helping to develop better drugs to fight illnesses such as diabetes, cancer, and depression. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said the $1.2 million prize went to Robert Lefkowitz and Brian Kobilka for discovering the inner workings of G-protein coupled receptors, gateways to cells that react to chemical messages. In international football and the World Cup qualifiers, Argentina prepares for Friday's match against arch-rivals Uruguay. Lionel Messi seems to be in great form along with other key members of the team. The two-times World Cup holders are currently among the favorites to win the World Cup that will be held in the land of samba, Brazil, in 2014. Germany also continues its preparations for the World Cup qualifiers. Germany's head coach seeks his third straight victory in Group C against Ireland on Friday in a tough match. The triple world champions last visited the Emerald Isle for a European Championships qualifier in 2007 and have won only one of their last 5 encounters against Ireland. And in tennis, world number 2 Novak Djokovic began his campaign at the Shanghai Masters today with an easy 6-3, 6-2 win against Bulgaria's Grigor Dimitrov in the second round. In other results, Thomas Berdych beat Andres Seppi 6-3, 6-3, while Andy Murray proceeded to the next round as Florian Mayer forfeited the competition due to an injury. And now a quick look at the weather. Night with light winds. Tomorrow a pleasant day with clouds in northern and central parts and possible scattered showers in the evening hours. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a mild night and a relatively hot day tomorrow with light winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King appointed Al-Ansur to head a new government that will push the reform agenda and oversee upcoming elections. In the letter of designation, the King says history will record that the Jordanian Spring is peaceful and civilized. And scores of Syrian rebels and army soldiers are killed in fighting near the Turkish border. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Sorry for the allergies. Have a good night.